today we've got our 300 series and we are towing a Jayco van that we just picked up from Brisbane Jayco. The guys down there set us up with this all-terrain Jayco. It's what we call a 22 foot. It's about 3.5 ton loaded at the moment. So it's quite a big van. It's sitting a fair way up. Today, what I thought we'd go through was just to show you where the 300 series was originally, but where we are today is more important for what we have done with the modifications. And towing like this, it's something that most Australians are going to be doing with their cars, and this is one of the reasons you buy a 300 series is to tour. So I first wanted to start off with just showing you some things. So at the moment, you know, the car, we're sitting on about 100 k's an hour. You know, we've got pretty much no wind today, so we're sort of going pretty smoothly through that. The car's weight's pretty average. There's no bull bars, second batteries, so the car's pretty standard in that regards. As far as the van goes, 3.5 ton, we're sitting and we're doing about 17.5 litres per 100k, which is, you know, it's freaking amazing that a car can tow this weight with that consumption at this. Now, I am looking at the gauge at the moment, but however, that is scaled correctly. If you tune the vehicle and you change certain parameters in there, you can change the scaling to make it look better than it actually is, but we've done this so it's correct in what it's putting out. So, the fuel consumption in 300 series is amazing. Our intake temps at the moment from obviously our Just Autos heat exchanger that we have on there, you know, we're stabilized at 38 degrees, which is fantastic considering, you know, the load that we have at the moment. And even looking at our coolant temp, you know, we're only at 82 degrees. So the car's just putting along here. We're going to be coming up to an incline soon, which is Croy Hill, which is, it's got a fairly large gradient on it, probably one of the longest, steepest hills that we have around here. So I'll be going up that shortly to see how the car performs. There's a couple of things I wanted to cover with the 300 series. When we first got the 300 series, you know, I was skeptical about a lot of things. You know, the 200 series was a great platform to come from. Can the 300 be better? The short answer to that is the 300 is miles better in every way. And so the first thing we're looking at here is that we've got a car here that Tortoise designed, and for towing, the car's sitting on around 1500 RPM, we're cruising at 100 Ks, our fuel consumption's unreal, it's driving perfectly. And this setup is a sequential turbo setup. So what that actually means is the fact that we have one singular turbo at the moment doing all the work. The second turbo that's sitting there is actually not doing anything. It's not spinning, it's just sitting there stationary, waiting to be used when we apply more throttle. At the moment, the single turbo has got the best part of towing. We've got all this massive torque curve in this low RPM up to around about 2000 RPM. So it's perfect for towing. Then when we put our foot down, the second turbo comes in, and we've got all this power to take us out to that 4500 range, and it's more than enough power. It's fantastic. This car's, you know, from factory, it's making 330 at all four wheels on 35s. You know, it was 180 to standard horsepower runs with this car on that dyno. So you can see there's a massive difference there. So I guess coming back to a couple of things that people have been asking questions about and so forth. And one of them I wanted to cover was cruise control. Now, the cruise control only works in drive. And I was like, this is interesting because it doesn't work in manual. And why is this? And I always like to understand and try and focus on why, because I think it's very important. If you don't know why, it's very hard to solve these particular issues. And the main reason I believe this is the case is because of the sequential turbo setup. Sequential turbo setup is extremely hard to get right. There's always a downside. There's one spot in the system that is not quite right, and that's usually over the changeover point. And in this particular car, it's between 2100 and 2500 area. Now, when you find that you are driving these cars on a long distance, and if you were to hold in that particular frame, you will get surge. Now, this particular car doesn't surge, and that's because we've tuned that surge out of it. However, Toyota brought out a update file because they were doing this from standard. And basically they've turned off the learning function around that changeover point to make it a little bit more subtle on changeover, which has made, you know, a massive difference to the point where the car is not doing it as much. However, we do see this time to time when cars have come in that have been tuned elsewhere, they definitely do have this transition problem. Now, not to go into the tuning side of things about that particular issue, but more or less is the sequential setup and how this is affected with the cruise control. what we're finding is the fact that when you have your cruise control on and you're traveling at speed in manual, everything works pretty well. However, if the car needs to increase speed, it'll drop down 2 gears and get you in the rev range, which is just over that 2,500 RPM, and it's brought on the second turbo while doing this. So therefore, what it's actually doing is getting you out of this dip between the 2,100 and the 2,500. And the 10-speed transmission in this car works so beautifully with this setup. It's a pleasure to drive. It just takes time to understand on what it's doing to really realize the technology that's come in this. So that's one of the main reasons they do it. If you were to have it holding in gear with cruise control and the car's trying to apply power to go up to a hill, you will find that you could get stuck in this actual dead spot and the car will want to surge back and forth and carry on. And it's not going to be quite pleasurable to drive. So I believe this is the main reason that Toyota have just done it for drive. This engine that they brought out has so much more technology in it. It runs steel pistons, it's a hot V, it's got so many amazing things about it that make it awesome. Toyota never take a step back. They always take a step forward with what they produce. And this motor is by far the best engine that I have tuned. I love this engine, it is fantastic. So there's a lot of positive things about this particular setup. I guess the thing is here is that, yes, this car isn't standard at the moment. So the results that we've got here is from a lot of the modifications that we've done at Just Autos. So we have our 4-inch exhaust on there, our airbox, we have a fat snorkel in it. We also have our heat exchanger, and obviously then with our custom tuning, we've added to it to make it what it is today. I just don't believe there's a platform of a car out there in this class that can do this job as well. We're ticking the boxes with consumption. We have the power there. It tows fantastically. By all means, this van is not small. It's on that larger side of vans, and it does it easy. This is not even a concern to drive this car. My expectations of this, I was doubting what the capabilities were, and it exceeded my expectations massively. So this combo in this car, 100%, if you are looking at doing touring and you're thinking about upgrading your 200 series to a 300, or you're basically wanting to come from another model of car and you're doubting the 300 series, mate, don't doubt it. It is a fantastic car and it is beautiful for what it's doing at the moment. It's definitely set up well. And out of all the cars that I've owned, this is by far the best car that I've ever owned. And I truly mean that. This is not a sales pitch. It's not Toyota telling me to say this or anything like that. It is purely based on driving this car. And this became time and time again driving the car and understanding it. So here we are, we're at Croy Hill. We've just started to go up the hill. We're doing 100 kilometers an hour. We're at 1600 RPM. Got to remember this car's got 35-inch tires on it. We're still towing the van. Temperature is still, it's 39 degrees, so it's gone up a degree. So now the cruise control on, it's just cut down to 1 gear. So we dropped down and we're doing 2100. The converter's locked, still 100 k's an hour. Up to 40 degrees intake temp. 41. Our engine temp's gone up a degree, so another degree. So there, we're just coming to the top of the hill now. We're still maintaining speed. We're still at 2100 RPM. And we're nearly at the top of the hill. All right, temps at 45 degrees, coolant temps at 85, and here we are at the top of the hill. So that's, we're slowly getting there now. It starts to flatten off at the top of this hill. So as you can see, it's just a no-brainer. Like, it works so well, and it's amazing that it's far different from the 200 series. Now the 200 series would do this with modifications, but the 300 series just seems to cruise it in. For something that's such a small capacity engine, it's far exceeds it. So look, if you have any questions or queries, please don't hesitate. Get onto our boys. Our sales teams are more than helpful. They'll be able to go through any questions that you have about our packages for these cars, and they'll be more than happy to help you out. Thank you.